Skarsnik, Imrik, Belegar, and Markus Wolfheart. These 4 studs had 4 of the hardest campaigns in Mortal Empires in Warhammer 2. Well, are they still the hardest in Immortal Empires in Warhammer 3? We're gonna find out. We'll kick it off with self-proclaimed King of 8 Peaks, Belegar Ironhammer. Now, Belegar's campaign was always pretty rough because of the plus 50% upkeep to all units until you took Karak 8 Peaks, which was enough of a challenge in itself, even without the 50%. Belegar's new campaign, though, you start in a slightly different position, just south of Karak Hufdar. You still get your 4 ethereal heroes to join your army right from the start, and you have a small greenskins army to fight right away. In this battle, as you can see, it's pretty easy. I'm doing all of these campaigns on very hard, by the way. So it's very hard campaign difficulty, hard battle difficulty. So once you've taken out that little army, you're free to move on and take Karak Hufdar, which again is pretty easy to do with your tough army. So we're able to capture a settlement on the first turn, and what's more, we get this little notification of the rightful king, which basically says Karak Hearn want to confederate with us. So naturally we're gonna do that, and then on turn 1 still, we've conquered a settlement which we couldn't do in the old Warhammer 2 campaign, and we got given a free province from Karak Hearn, so we've nearly got 2 full provinces on turn 1. Not a bad start, huh? The Karak Hearn army I've inherited is pretty expensive for me at the moment, so I'm going to get rid of most of these units and just keep the higher tier units that I won't be able to get for a while, as they will be useful. But for now, feeling pretty strong on turn 1. As I move on to Karak Izor to take the final settlement in my other province so I can complete the province, it is a minor settlement battle. They do have a fairly sizable army, so I'm just going to sit here and wait them out and try to wear them down, which makes for an easy take of the settlement, and it would have been easy enough to take them out in the open field, but there hasn't really been any reason to fight any of these battles so far. Now with the capture of that settlement, it means I've got 2 full provinces now by turn 5, which is a better start than most factions will get. Now honestly, from here up until around turn 20 or so, when I decide to leave this area, there's pretty much no trouble here. None of my settlements get attacked, none of these potential enemies around come after me, Scrag, Aranessa. None of them bother me at all. I managed to get non-aggression pacts with most of the factions around me. The Border Princes, the Wood Elves with Orion, and even Aranessa later on will give me a non-aggression pact, and I don't have to worry about anyone attacking my 2 provinces. Honestly, the biggest issue of the next 10 or 15 turns was that age-old dwarf problem of growth. And no, I'm not talking about their tiny legs, I'm talking about the economy and the growth of the provinces. Yes, I know, I'm going in the book for that one. But here we are on turn 20. All I'm doing is growing up my 2 provinces. I've had no threats at all, so I decided to build up my army and head for goddamn 8 Peaks pretty early. Turn 20, let's go for it. I've got a decent army. The biggest challenge here, though, was simply getting across the Badlands and avoiding the bloody hands which tried to bloody murder me. Luckily, I was able to evade them with the underway, so keeping my army intact, which was of the utmost importance if I wanted to have any hope of taking 8 Peaks, because it's not easy with a single army anyway this early on. So I boogied my way down towards 8 Peaks, where they had a full stack there, which wasn't anything too crazy. It had some strong units in there, trolls, biggins, a couple of Black Hawks and a Ragnarok, but that didn't matter too much to me and my cunning plans anyway. The garrison at this point is only 11 units as well, so that certainly makes things easier than if it was a 20 stack. But I managed to get to 8 Peaks in one piece, and I went for it. Now my cheeky tactics for the battle were to try and spread their army out by putting single less useful units, miners with blasting charges, on the other side of the map, just to draw some of their units over there, position the main bulk of my army in one place, shift it to another place where all the defending units weren't, and I had 2 units of rangers who have stalk, which means when I place them, the enemy doesn't know they're there, so they won't place any kind of garrison units inside the settlement to try and stop those rangers, because they don't know they're there. So they're great for opening doors sneakily and then bringing the rest of my army in, which is exactly what I did. You can see I'm pouring in here with no greenskins in sight to stop me. They've all been dragged over here by my single unit of miners, which is causing a fantastic diversion. I'm going to pull them out, so hopefully they at least survive the battle. But it's all about going for the victory objective. If I capture that, I win, no matter how many greenskins are left alive. So that's what I've gone for. I've managed to capture it. Now all I've got to do is keep the greenskins out of this point by keeping them distracted with whatever I can. My army has taken an absolute pounding to get there. They did do a pretty good job of stopping any of my units getting there, but I was able to sneak a couple of lords and heroes through their defenses just to grab that victory objective. And indeed, it does work in my favor today, which means I can capture Karak 8 Peaks nice and early. Turn 23. We've got 8 Peaks under our control and 2 provinces still in the bag. We've got it done. And you can see now my income has shot up, so things are going to get much easier from here on in. I can now sit here and build up 8 peaks, make it a strong defensible fortress, build a second army as well to defend my main provinces if I need to. So yeah, overall I will say that I found Belegar's campaign much easier than it was before. Still not an easy campaign by any means, but certainly not as much of a challenging struggle as it was before. Moving on to High Elf Dragon Boy Imrik, who may possibly have had the worst campaign in Immortal Empires because it kind of felt ill thought through. You slapped a guy who could barely afford one full army because High Elves are expensive in the middle of 3 very aggressive expansive factions in Clan Eshin, Grimgor's Greenskins and the Karazakarak Dwarfs. It was pretty damn rough. In Immortal Empires, Imrik still starts in the same place, but it's very different now. Visually, you can see it looks a lot nicer, it's looking very pretty over here, but the settlements that you need for your first province are much closer together than they were in Warhammer 2, so that makes life easier first of all. We do have to take out some dwarfs though. They've got 2 settlements that we need, and our starting fight is against some dwarfs, but that's okay. We've got a dragon, some dragon princes, Imrik himself, a caster as well, so not a bad starting army, although lacking slightly in the armor piercing for taking out dwarfs, but hey, we got dragons. So it's easier in those ways, but the biggest thing is that those dangerous factions from before have buggered off. Clan Eshin used to be over here, and they used to expand very quickly, coming in from the east, and they could be a real problem for you, and early as well, because they'd expand quick. And if Clan Eshin didn't get you, then Grimgor probably would later on. He expands a bit slower, but he can get strong very quick. He can get like 50 settlements by the time you've got 5. But as I say, with Clan Eshin moving away and Grimgor's Ardboys moving away, life is much easier here. Moving on to turn 15, I've conquered my first province, I've taken it all off the dwarfs, it wasn't too much trouble. I'm just starting to build up this province now, improving the economy, which I especially need as the High Elves' income is a bit of a problem when you own dragons. But other than that, things haven't been too hard. I've got some ogres coming in from the east, but it's only a minor faction, so no huge worry. The only kind of huge worry I do have is Clan Moors to my southwest. Queek can always be a bit of a problem, another very expensive faction potentially, so we've got to keep an eye on him. I did take this other little random settlement as it had a port, but it's kind of difficult to take the rest of the province, so I may not be able to do that. There is a dragon encounter here though by turn 15, so I'm going to go after it, try and get myself a dragon early on. This one is for Shakalot the Calamity. I've got some vampire stuff to take care of, zombies, skeletons, nothing too crazy other than Shakalot himself, he's the danger here. And it was indeed completely doable for my early game army, which was mostly just spearmen and archers, some Lothan Sea Guard. Did have my dragon, and of course Imrik is a force to be reckoned with himself. But because half of the army in this battle was very slow in zombies and skeletons, it gave me the time to take out some stuff before any of that arrived, including Shakalot himself. We managed to get him down before the main bulk of the enemies had arrived, which made it much easier to deal with, not having to worry about Shakalot. So I bonked him on the head and claimed him as my own. Advancing on to turn 29 here, so going a fair jump ahead, you can see I haven't really gained any new ground in my starting area with my first province. I did have the potential to take some of these ogre settlements over here, but I decided to gift one that I took to some other ogres and then made friends with them so that I was kind of protected from the east. Because I had grander plans. I wanted to come and take the Dragon Isles, because I am the dragon guy. I need everything which has the word dragon in it, so I'm going to come and take the Dragon Isles, which I have been doing. I also came over here because one of my victory objectives to win the campaign is to take out the Poxmakers of Nurgle, Kugath, his faction. That starts here, and I've been beating the scheisse out of them and taking all their shit. Luckily, Kugath was away up north, and I was able to take these 3 settlements before he's even arrived. He's come back now. I've got plagues coming out of my ass, but I'm okay. I've got him down to 1 settlement left, and he's at war with Helmund Gorst, who's above him, so there's a good chance he'll be taking a dirt nap. And moving on a few turns, that is exactly what happens. I take his final settlement, take out his final army, and the Poxmakers of Nurgle are no more, which means I'm pretty much most of the way to winning this campaign. All I've got to do now, as you can see here, is take out Clan Rictus. I've got to encounter 2 legendary dragons. I don't even know if I need to actually get them, but I've got 1 already, so I just need 1 more, and then interact with a bunch of settlements, and victory achieved for the short campaign anyway. So Imrik's campaign, in my experience, has definitely felt much easier than it was before, and much more enjoyable as well, so that's good to see. Moving on to the little guy then, Skarsnik, another one of the harder campaigns of Mortal Empires. He's also vying for Karak 8 Peaks as Bellagar is, and in Mortal Empires he had a long way to go to get to 8 Peaks, so that was really the challenge for him, getting through all of the enemies and stuff in the way. Whereas now he has his new start position, which is much closer to 8 peaks. You start up in Mount Gunbad, which is a particularly nice settlement to have, as it does have a gold mine, so that's always helpful. You'll start off at war with the Bloody Spears, who aren't too difficult to get through, another Greenskins faction, and I've got to take these 2 settlements off them to complete my province, so that's what I'm doing. I'm besieging one of them over here. There was a little starting army to take out, so I bonked that on the head, and we get a fairly okay starting army ourselves. We've got an Ragnarok, some Squig Hoppers, but alas, we must remember that the Karazakarak dwarfs are right over here, which is just round the corner from us, and they can be tough to deal with, especially for Gobbos early on. To my north, there's some more Greenskins, so a little bit protected from that direction, if we can get friendly with them. So the first few turns are easy enough, just taking out some other Greenskins. A couple of minor settlement battles are needed just to get these things under control. And then we'll have our first province in the bag. Once we've taken these first 2 settlements, this will give us a nice strong starting province, which we can hope to build up to be able to afford a strong enough army to go and take on 8 peaks, and maybe do the same kind of thing we did in the Belegar campaign, going down there quite early, because, well, it's a lot easier to take 8 peaks when there's only an 11 garrison rather than a 20 garrison, alongside the stack that'll also be there. So now I've got these 2 Bloody Spear settlements I can attempt to try and take. I've got to take some time to replenish though, my army's pretty beaten up. Eventually I did push out and take Mount Squighorn, but guess who came along to ruin the party? It's the goddamn dwarves. Karazakarak pushed out. I had to abandon that settlement and just fall back to replenish my army, build it up a bit, try and get some stronger units, and maybe be able to take them on. But it's really hard early on with the dwarfs. Even their cheapy crappy units can still be tough to deal with for little old Gobbos. I've started recruiting some trolls though. They've got the armor piercing. I've got some nasty skulkers with a little bit of armor piercing. Got some pump wagons with that as well, and they're good for disrupting their missiles. So we've got some tools to try and take them on, but still not an easy task wearing down and outlasting those goddamn dwarfs. But a few turns on, I am able to reclaim Mount Squighorn once again, and it's looking good. It seems like I now should be able to push on Karazakarak. They've got another settlement and an army here, but I should be able to beat that up, and then maybe, just maybe, I can roll on to Karazakarak. Or so I thought. Ungrim declared war on me a few turns ago, and he's got 2 big armies coming my goddamn way. So now I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. Do I keep on pushing Karazakarak, or do I come and defend from Karak fuckface? Well, I did a little bit of both. I came and took the Pillars of Grungni settlement, because I thought Ungrim's going to take a while to get to my settlement, so I probably got a few turns, so I took that out, but it looks like they're going to reclaim it pretty quick. I brought my Skarsnik army back up north, and I've arrived just in time as they are besieging Mount Gunbad, which of course has my precious gold mine, which I do kind of need. My money's pretty good, and it's probably mostly because of that gold mine though, so don't want to lose that. These 2 armies are pretty beaten up, however, so wasn't too much trouble taking those out, and boom, I've taken care of Karak fuckface, and he's gone away for now. But now I've got to go back down south and try to deal with Karazakarak again, who, guess what, have reclaimed their territory and have got 2 full stacks pretty much in their 2 settlements, so goddamn, I've got to do it all over again. So, by turn 30 nearly, I haven't really got anywhere. But things are starting to look up a bit now, finally. Azag has been pushing Ungrim back, so he's taken some of his settlements and pushed him right back to here, so he shouldn't be too much of a threat anymore. Now it's just a case of, can I take out Karazakarak, who do have some big tough armies, or 1 big tough army and 1 of miners. And I do now have a War though, so I put a War on Karazakarak. This is giving me, of course, my extra units will give me a 2nd stack alongside mine. So in theory, I should now be able to bonk all of these boys on the head, hopefully eliminate Karazakarak for good, take this province and have 2 nice strong provinces, and then from there I can move down and go after 8 peaks. That's the plan. I didn't do this yet, but these first 30 turns gave me a good idea of how hard this campaign is. Definitely harder than Belagar's and Imrik's. Is it harder than the old Crooked Moon campaign in Warhammer 2? I'd say maybe not, because just the distance to travel to get to 8 peaks was so far in Warhammer 2, and it's much closer now, so in theory if I can get rid of Karazakarak, it should be pretty plain sailing from there. And lastly, Markus Wolfhart for the Empire, starting over in Lustria. A pretty tough campaign in Mortal Empires with all the lizard men to deal with early on, and not a lot of ally or other friendly factions that you could maybe team up with, so he was very much alone. Now, things have changed quite drastically. He still starts in the same place. The area, though, of course, is redone, looks very nice. But now he has to deal with Skaven early on rather than Lizardmen, which is definitely way, way easier. Because, you know, clan rats are much easier to beat up than Saurus warriors. The starting army for Markus isn't fantastic. With huntsmen and war wagons, they're okay, but they're not quite a dragon or anything. But there's probably a reason for that we'll talk about later. The bigger thing over here though is that Iric has arrived. He's a kind of a good guy faction you can sort of make friends with and team up, and he'll take some of the heat off you from the Lizardmen and the Vampire Coast. The Zlatland Lizardmen were a bit of a problem I think before for Markus, if I remember correctly, but now didn't really see them at all in this entire first 30 turns or so that I played. So we got to deal with Skaven first of all, which is pretty easy, and I'm able to take my first province pretty comfortably. Along the way I have been able to get the Imperial supplies, which has given me a whole bunch of better units. I've got some Empire Knights, I've got some Pistoliers. So this is probably why we had a bit of a crappy starting army, is because we can get some of these better units a little bit earlier than usual with the Imperial supply system. Fast forward about 10 turns and I've taken even more territory now, pushing back the greenskins in the north that controlled this province. They still exist a little bit in the north, so I've got to be wary of them still. But again, my army's gained some better units. I've got some Grenade Outriders and a Hellstorm Rocket Battery. I've also unlocked the Sigmar's Son, so I'm getting a pretty good army together as I go. Like I said, I got to watch out for those greenskins, but I got a bit of a choke point here that I can maybe just hold up and just defend and try to keep them back from, but I do need to start pushing down the south now and try to take some of this stuff. Iric has pushed out. The Lizardmen that were here have been taken out by a Tzeentch faction. I didn't see those Lizardmen at all, didn't have to fight them, so literally it's just been Skaven and greenskins so far. But yeah, it's nice to have a Bretonnia faction that we can get a non-aggression pact with and start to build a relationship with nearby us. The Tzeentch faction that's nearby is always a bit of a worry. I'm half expecting to just randomly lose a settlement to somebody else. But so far, everything's pretty much going okay. There is the hostility mechanic, which makes a Lizardmen army appear every now and again, but they haven't been too much trouble either. Markus's victory conditions are to pretty much just take Lustria, which means taking out all of the factions that occupy Lustria. So pretty much what you'd expect, but perhaps a longer campaign than some other short campaigns. Overall, up to turn 26 here, things are still going pretty much okay, although I haven't advanced much anywhere. Mazdamundi came along and took out those greenskins for me, but some Norskins have now declared war on me, and they're not too far away, but not too worried about them. I did gift a province over here to the Dark Elves just to make friends with them and to get a non-aggression pact, so I gifted them that settlement because I couldn't get the rest of the broken province anyway, or at least I didn't want to go after it. And I want to focus now on pushing down south and trying to get rid of the Vampire Coast. Iric's still around as well to maybe help out with that, so overall this campaign going pretty well, feels pretty normal, definitely not as hard as it used to be. Nice. So there we go, 4 of the hardest campaigns from Mortal Empires and Warhammer 2, seemingly most of them, 3 out of 4 at least, got a fair bit easier, or at least more balanced. I think they're better for it. I don't think it's a bad thing that the difficulty has gone from these campaigns, or not gone, but just knocked down a peg. But now we do have to wonder who has the hardest campaign in Immortal Empires. Maybe it's Skarsnik? Probably not though, it feels like there could be something harder out there. We'll have to see. I hope you've enjoyed this, thanks for watching, I will see you in the future.